Life, we know and agree, is a learning process. How we start off in life can make or mar what we are or will be in the future. You know, there are many great people. Many of you are successful because of the way you start off educationally. So basic education is very important to the well-being of an individual, a society, and the nation. And that will be our focus on the program this morning. Just like Sule started off yesterday, we will continue. Brainstorm, hear from you, and let's see if we can agree on something on what basic education is and will be for many of us. My name is Cecil Egbele, and of course I had a great and beautiful basic education. That is why I am here and I am what I am today. Sule, I believe, also had a very good basic education.
We had our peculiar challenges, but thank God we are where we are today.
You had your peculiar challenges.
Of course, even back then, you can relate to some issues that are still prevalent today. You talk about structure, you talk about quality teachers. You talk about
it varies from, education in Nigeria, we know it varies from region to region.
Exactly.
Yeah, you schooled somewhere in the north, right?
North Central.
Okay, within the North Central.
Okay. Local government.
I schooled in the Southwest, Lagos State to be specific. Well, yeah, like you said, we all had there were some.
Was it private or public?
Public, proudly public.
Oh, we all. In fact, that's
proudly
the irony.
public.
That's your irony, because these days, even public school teachers hardly take their own words in to the public schools. They prefer private schools, and then that trend must change if we really want to get.
Is it not because they are not well paid enough to take their children to the school they teach?
Well,
okay.
Of course, certainly, we are definitely going to, be adding value to the narrative we started yesterday, and that is about basic education in Nigeria. Yes, we have some challenges, but it is expected that after we are done with the program today, the authorities concerned will begin to take the necessary action to ensuring that the system is fixed. My name is Suleiman Babojia Usman. It's always a pleasure to have you join us on the show. Yes, we are talking basic education in Nigeria, and Nelson Mandela once said about education that it is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. But trust me, if you don't get the foundation of that education right, certainly the desired success will not be experienced or achieved. So let's take this background report put together by Thelma Obaze to set the boat rolling for our conversation today.
Triangle shape.
Education, many say, is the process of acquiring learning. We also learn that it's also impacting knowledge. When we're talking about knowledge, we're thinking about English, mathematics, writing, geography, history, religious studies, and lots more. But in these days, education is a more holistic experience. Learning is a process and a lifestyle. At a certain stage in our lives, the class is integrated into that lifestyle. First, though, the character takes shape from the home.
So it's not just the nurture at home, but it's also the nurture in school that takes place to make a holistic learning. So for babies, as they grow up, they might not be able to read, but they begin to hear things. You teach them, you talk to them, they hear. As they hear, they're like sponges. As they hear, within a certain time, they begin to say, oh, this is what they taught us.
Teachers can inspire hope, ignite the imagination, and instill a love of learning. Of all the hard jobs around, one of the hardest is being a good teacher. Teaching obviously goes beyond giving accurate answers to questions, but is more like understanding the needs and challenges of the students and adapting appropriate tools to help them succeed.
I feel that the only way I can touch children at that tender age is to be a teacher. At the end of the day, I feel very fulfilled.
In her opinion, Vera Ogunsaju says a stellar student doesn't just happen. It is birth, with collaboration and a deliberate synergy between parents and teachers, involving fun experiences in the learning process.
They hear rhymes, for instance, lullabies, for instance. They know it's time for them to sleep. So you rock them and they listen to the rhyme, they sleep. Now, if they hear counting, these are sounds, they hear, oh, counting, automatically their minds are tuned to learning that, okay, they need to count, they need to learn. So when they do things like that, then we let parents know this is what we do in school. You can do same at home. Or you don't go past a traffic light when it is red. You have to obey the traffic lights. And then when you've taught the child goes back home to apply the stuff to the parent. For example, when they are driving on the road, the parent might just go past the security, the red light, and the child will just, say, oh, you daddy, you don't do that, because they taught us in school that green says go and red says stop.
Rufikato Chidawa combined both.
There is joy in bringing up children. The mere fact that that child is something today, it's enough joy for any teacher. Sometimes you discover that your job takes most of your time, but the little time you have and you sit down with your children is always a quality time. You teach them what you need to teach them, you correct them when you need to correct them, and you admonish them.
The first role model a child has is the parent or guardian, and then it's on to the teacher and other authority figures in a learning environment. The good choices that they make largely impact society. When the choices are bad, everyone seeks whom to blame. We can do it right at the onset. Schools must utilize trained professionals whose tasks align with the different stages of the growth and development of our wards and children.
The child that comes to you has a problem, so it needs a solution. So once he just come to you and narrated the story for you, as a leader and as a role model, and then you direct, pilot, guide, and the child the true way of life.
Some guardians opine that public schools have not moved as briskly as they ought to in terms of developmental impact and educational standards. Hence the consistent movement towards private schools. Others disagree. What is critical and of the utmost importance is that to raise responsive adults who can be independent, honest, focused, progressive leaders, everyone must be involved. Parents, teachers, society too.
Yes, everyone must be involved as far as basic education is concerned in Nigeria, because it is a bedrock of any progress a nation intends to achieve. Cecil.
Yeah, true. Many times when you ask people, they tell you, "Oh, I had a solid education, it's declining now." Well, but if you ask some others, they'll tell you that because of, well, the education is getting better now. Children are being taught some of the basic, washing your hands, stuff like that. But, well, in our next feature, Sule, which is coming from NTA Enugu, we'll get to understand why if any, there is a decline in our education, in our basic education system in the country?
One of the major human developmental indices of a country is the educational quality. Bearing in mind that knowledge is power, the foundation of Nigeria's educational system has evolved over the years from the 654 system of education to the 6334 and again to 934 that is on board now, all in the bid to improving the educational sector.
Every child now must compulsorily finish primary school and finish junior secondary school and take the basic education exam, because government believes that after 9 years in school, the child must have been considered literate, must have acquired enough numeracy skills and enough life skills that will enable them to function in the society.
Education, which is considered the most potent weapon in the fight against poverty and ignorance, is also considered the most effective tool for self-development. In this line, vocational and technological schools were founded to equip the average Nigerian child with knowledge of technology and vocational studies.
In this state, we have 41 schools that are primarily focused on science, technical, and vocational orientations. And in these schools, children engage their delighted attention in vocational trades.
An evaluation of the educational system, especially at the foundation level of primary and secondary schools, has shown an improvement in the quality output, especially in Enugu State, where there was total overhauling of the educational sector.
The focus is on three things. Access. His Excellency believes that every child should have the opportunity of getting the best education possible. And in so doing, he has a plan to ensure that our schools are put in a proper form, are put in a proper shape, equipped in such a way that our schools will be inviting to both students and learners.
All my teachers, they are doing well and they put interest in when teaching us and they make sure the students understand it.
Though there has been a lot of transformation in this sector, some areas still need attention. From research, it's obvious that the alumni and parents-teachers associations of most schools take it upon themselves to champion major projects in schools, thereby helping government in the development of the educational system.
The effort of the old guests of this school could be noticed everywhere, like helping the government to renovate some of the structures and erect new buildings too.
What we have now is what we call the school-based management committee. It is in every school, made up of people from that catchment area, people from that community. They help a lot in making our school system worthwhile.
Though a lot of energy has been channeled towards the educational sector, it is still obvious that the sector still needs a lot of attention to tackle the leakages that still exist in the system.
Well, there are almost always leakages and in the system needing transformation. Well, whether it's a decline now, it's a debate that we'll have to take up with our guest as we continue. There are many areas in the education system doing pretty well, and there are some areas also which need actually improvement. Sule?
Yeah, well said, and I'm sure by the time we introduce our guest, they will talk further about some of these areas. Of course, they have started, saying, because basic education actually in Nigeria is a passionate thing that we all must engage in ensuring that we create that standard that we all crave for. And then talking about standard, why is there a decline? Of course, that is what NTA Channel 10 Lagos will be talking about in this next feature, and after that probably you get to meet our guest.
Education is the bedrock of national and human development. Education is usually done under the guidance of teachers with formal or informal settings. Formal education in Nigeria is divided into the primary, secondary, and tertiary levels of education. The Nigerian education system witnessed tremendous expansion between independence in 1960 and 1995. Although national policies for education has provided an influential context to enable and sustain quality and standard education for Nigerians, the level of investment in education seems not to be too rewarding considering the deteriorating educational standards in recent times, with its attendant impact on the development of the nation.
In the old time, the way the children handle education are far better than this. And I think it's because of all these modern ways that is causing it. In the olden times, we fear the teachers, we respect them, but nowadays there is no due respect for even their masters or mistress.
The standard of education then was very high because we were given informal education right from home. The fear of elders were instilled in us. Respect, you have to respect your elders. We were told, we were trained. This is part of informal education that we had then. And with informal education, by the time you now go into school, you know how to respect your teachers.
In former times, the foundation of the Nigerian educational standard was recognized to be of remarkable and higher quality at the inception of the public schools and missionary schools. These schools featured competent educators with more teaching experience, whose efforts were backed by the effective implementation of government policies and better learning facilities, with educators who inculcated long-lasting ethics alongside academics. Students were known to look up to their teachers for tutoring, guidance, and discipline. Hence, the values impacted into these children could be seen in the way they behaved. Now the question is, at what point did we start losing a grip on value, quality, and a higher standard in our educational system?
To me, technology has done a lot, and everything still boils down on the parent, home. Let's train our children. Let's have time for them. Let's monitor the kind of friends. If you have taught your children about contentment, they will know that it's not about having so much. Once you're able to eat, what are you looking for? Having so many cars, to do what? So many houses, to do what? You won't sleep on two beds at the same time. You won't live in two rooms at the same time. So what are we saying? If you as a parent, you live such a life that shows contentment, then definitely your child too will know.
Despite the fact that the national policies for education are formulated to ensure quality education, the system seems not to be yielding expected results, partly due to faulty modern parenting, which seems to have downgraded respect for teachers. Modern challenges of making ends meet need not stop parents from getting involved in the tutoring and guidance of their children in wards, and instill respect for teachers. Moreover, efforts should be made by government at all levels to increase budgetary allocation for education, while other stakeholders should strictly implement the policies on education. With this done, Nigeria will take her rightful pride of place in the comity of
Yeah, we
nations.
would actually like to have your opinion on what standard of education is like for you where you are in this part of the country. Or growing up, what was it like for you? Is it better now? And what your opinions are as the program continues? You have our contact details. Please do well to reach us. All right, that future standard of education in Lagos is what we've just seen. Let's take a flight down north. Let's go to Bauchi and let's hear from our correspondent what standard of education is in that part of the country.
People are closely related by blood. We are closely related by blood.
Education is an investment that pays off anytime, anywhere. Thus, education could also be said to be the bedrock of any nation. It follows that a nation without a sound and development-oriented education is as good as a dead nation.
You see, the problem we have in Nigeria actually is not the system, the implementation. We will have a system. The 6334 system is a very good policy. It's a good policy. But how do we go about it in Nigeria is the issue. The Nigerian factor is always there. We always tend to, sometimes when we talk about policies, we should be able to now differentiate the policy, the goodness of the policy, and then also the truth, or let's say the honesty of the implementation. In most cases, you find out that we have good policies, but the implementation is the problem.
In Nigeria, education historically can be traced back since the arrival of the Christian and Islamic education in the country, which serves as major foundation of education. In Nigerian educational system has gone major structural changes and policies over the years.
You cannot compare it. During our days where government used to pay to us, give us transport money, give us clothes, materials, PE, what have you. There's a clothes meant for dining where you wear it and go to the dining hall to eat. These days it's not possible because the population, the total number of population, our population keep on increasing. So there's no way government can do all this. The resources are very, very scarce.
The recent school feeding initiative by the government is a welcome development, and if successfully, it will have an impact in encouraging school turnout. Education is the bedrock of development, but unfortunately, education in Nigeria is bisected with myriads of problems. This includes poor funding, and those poor education infrastructures, inadequate classrooms, teaching aids, projectors, computer, laboratories and libraries, paucity of quality teachers, and poor polluted learning environment. Our school system is plagued with numerous social vices such as examination malpractices, cultism, hooliganism, and corruption.
In fact, the culture of reading is much then. But nowadays, actually, the students are not into reading. They are more into, interneting with their phones, communicating with their phones. And if you look at what they go through in the phone, it's not actually what is supposed to, let's say, something that will aid them in learning. Mostly it's something they are just fun seeking, I would say. You see them only watching movies, football, movies. These are some of the things they are into nowadays, which was kind of not obtainable.
For a meaningful development to take place in the education sector, the government needs to readdress the issue of funding.
Of course, funding has been a major problem facing the education sector. Even our guest in the studio, which of course we're going to introduce much later, and the program will attest to that. And then, of course, ensuring that we have this basic education, in our society is very, very critical, because everything you want to achieve is based on that. If that foundation is not well structured, everything you build on it certainly will not hold for long. It will surely collapse. And then now let's move to NTA Ado Ekiti to see the situation in Ekiti State, how they are putting, basic education.
Yeah, just before we go there, talking about the issue of funding. Funding has it's been a recurring issue even then, even now. And let's talk about areas of infrastructure, the private and public schools. You see that the private schools, basically, well, from criticism, from what Sokwata say, they sell infrastructure. They have beautiful infrastructure, everything. They bring syllabus from abroad. It's all looking, and parents, of course, we like international things.
Yeah.
Children want to send themselves there. While the infrastructure in most public schools, dilapidated, well, maybe some not so bad. The ratio of teacher-students, it's really... So these are some of the things people look at when they decide to send their children.
And Cecil, just to corroborate what you're saying, the Ubeka man we had yesterday, he said something very critical, that they did a baseline study across the country to see to ascertain the quality of teachers in both private and public primary schools. And at the end of it, they realize that the public schools tend to have more qualified, more professional teachers than in the private school. But just what you're saying now, the environment matters a lot. The curriculum matters a lot. These are some of the things that could actually attract and convince parents to take their words to private schools or public schools. So if our public schools are well structured, trust me, the narrative will change.
Like we've been discussing with our guest off camera, is holistic.
Yes,
it's holistic. So where did you say we're going to next?
Yeah, Ekiti State. Let's see what's happening there as far as basic education is concerned.
Education is usually seen as the best legacy to be bequeathed to the younger generation because an investment in knowledge is believed to always pay the best interest. Despite the consensus on the prime role of education in shaping the society we live in, the apparatus for education appear not to be receiving the desired impetus.
What we observe these days is that the standard of education in Nigeria is falling, and all stakeholders need to come together to raise the standard.
The explosion in population in Nigeria has created a great necessity for a matching strategy to educate the populace. Without corresponding opportunity of accessing the desired form of instruction in public schools, many private schools emerge to bridge the wide gap. In some cases, the mushroom schools are without enough qualified teachers and facilities. Even the regular public primary and secondary schools are affected by irregular academic calendar, poor remuneration of teachers, lack of basic facilities, high level of indiscipline, and what have you.
Discipline of staff and students who are major stakeholders in education is very important to the improvement of education in Nigeria. If we have disciplined staff, disciplined teachers, then we are moving forward.
It is, however, expedient that all stakeholders must be involved to turn around the fortune of education in Nigeria. The government as a key stakeholder and the regulatory agency must be alive to its responsibilities.
In Ekiti State, the government in place now realizes the fact that it is important for us to capture those children that are out of school. He also realizes the importance of providing infrastructure that will accommodate those that we capture to come to school. And that was the reason why the government embarked on massive infrastructural development.
The private sector, parents and students must also take the bull by the horns to stem the tide of the downward trend in the standard of education in the country.
The parents had to ensure that their children are well nurtured at home. They say, spare the rod, spoil the child. Make sure you collect your children's papers. See that they do their assignment, see their performance in school.
The students should be serious, and that is the personal issue. The teachers should be dedicated to their work, to impart knowledge to the students, and the learning environment should be conducive for learning.
It is evidently clear that education is the passport to the future, but the future belongs to those who prepare for it today.
Okay, that's about it from Ekiti State. And then, of course, so many things to talk about, Cecil. You talk about infrastructure, you talk about parents as well. You talk about, the old boys, who must have graduated from that particular school, giving back to their alma mater. And it is everything is it's a holistic approach that must be taken to fix the education system in Nigeria.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's something that can be done anytime soon because, yeah, discussions like this has been happening over time, Well, like they say, drops of water make a mighty ocean. So probably someday, sometime, something is going to happen, and real soon, I pray.
This is where they say fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on a break, and after that, Cecil will be chatting with our guests.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, you're welcome, and you're right on time to meet our guests as we're discussing basic education in Nigeria. So far, how far? Let's try to critique it. Send in your messages and let's see how we can all contribute in this discourse. I have my guests with me in the studio, 2 guests, and together we'll try to see how we can get a way around our education system. First, I'll start with Dr. Adamu Jataunoma. You have the FCT Universal Basic Education Board with UBEB. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. And
all right.
Hello, viewers.
UBEB, you have a lot of questions to answer. It all boils down to your table. All right, and just beside him, we have Dr. Godswill Oki of the Mass Comm Department, Nasarawa State University. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, we've been discussing off camera. The problem we say is holistic. Now, let's start from the fact that where did we get it? Okay, I withdraw that. Your opinion, are we better today than we used to be 20 years back, maybe? Or in your time?
Well, we are just good. I wouldn't say we are better than before or we are less than before, because I have my own reasons. There are so many things that people expect now that people think we are not there. But people make mistake by comparing us with developed countries. And that's why whatever people say, they will not say, we are nowhere, we are not performing, we are not doing that, we are not there, we are not there. Education in Nigeria is still good. It's still good. But there are so many expectations. So many expectations.
Yes, so many expectations.
Yes. During our own time, how many subjects did we have? What were we learning? What were the societal expectations from us at that time? Just reading, arithmetic, few subjects. Those days.
But the people who came out there are doing pretty well. You are one of them.
Yes.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that we don't have people who are graduating these days and are not doing well.
Okay.
We have people who are passing out now and they are doing very well, extremely very well. They go to overseas and compete and they emerge the best.
Yet WAEC is crying and JAM crying that the numbers of people who pass these examinations are not so good. We are coming back to that. Your opinion, sir?
My opinion, the country is evolving.
Yeah, every country.
The education is evolving also. And like my co-discussant has mentioned, you have in-between cases, situations where you have exceptionally very good students, even from villages, despite the odds, as may be the case. But you also look at it. You can't run away from the fact that you have to look at the standards from what obtains, even the UNESCO standards. Are we meeting up with these standards? Are we there, near there, as may be the case? And unfortunately, we may say no. But that still doesn't take away the fact that we are doing what we ought to do. And don't forget that Nigeria is expanding. The population has grown. Maybe we need to also expand.
Maybe we should grow along.
we ought to grow along, in that aspect. We ought to plan ahead. We ought to have rolling plans, knowing that a system that could accommodate 500 students has grown. Maybe you need to put up more schools, you need to train more teachers. There are so many things that have to be put in place to achieve where we have to be at the present.
Dr. Noma, what is expected? What's the ratio of teacher students, and what do we have now?
Well, it depends on the state.
Oh, they vary.
Yes, it depends on the state. And then even within in a state, it depends on the school, the location of the school. Here in FCT,
Okay.
if you take the weighted average in FCT, you find out that for now we have a shortage of teachers. So the ratio is very, very high now. On the average, you have a ratio of 1 to 80, for instance. But that is the weighted average. When you take specific locations, like if you take areas like Nyanya, like Kubwa, and so on, you may have a ratio 1 to 100, 120, 150 pupils.
No
now,
way.
You take it. But in the rural areas, you now have 1 to just 45 or 50 in the rural area. So it depends. It depends on the location of the school.
Yeah, I know back in the days, our teachers know all our names.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't...
Even now, teachers are still trying. But I want to tell you that then, you see, during our own time, education was not universal. It was education for just very few. In this present place where we call the FCC today, there were only about just 2 schools. In those days, during our own time, just 2 schools. Just Wuse and Gariki. Yeah. Now, how many schools do we have here? So you find out that in those 2 schools, in a year, this area was only expected to produce about 40 pupils. That was then.
Yeah.
Now every child has to go to school.
The population on the side of Abuja
it has exploded. There is a population explosion in our schools. So the challenge is that our planning strategy is not meeting up with the growth.
Okay, well, so that's something that we have agreed that should be worked upon.
Yes.
Now, we have public and private schools. Private schools now everywhere,
Yes.
every nook and cranny, every street has
Yes.
a very expensive one, the not so expensive one. What do you think is the standard of, who manages this? What do you think is the standard of these private schools we have today? Because, like I said while I was talking earlier, many times they sell their very beautiful buildings and everything, their fancy curriculum imported. Do you think this is in any way helping or not our system? You want to take that? Okay.
In the FCT, I will use in the FCT where I'm more conversant. In the FCT, we have a department called Department of Quality Assurance. That department oversights both public and private schools. So it oversights them, looks at what they are doing. But you see, the private school, in most cases, most of them deceive, parents, bringing out certain things. And once they bring them out, those things attract the parents. I'm thinking, you see the beautiful edifice, put a computer, put this, and deceive parents. Parents send their children to them, and they pay through their noses. I want to tell you in FCT that our public schools are very, very good. Very, very good. Just last week, there was a national jet competition, and our students emerged the best. We came by our pupils, our primary and junior secondary school pupils, came with not less than 10 trophies, and the FCT Universal Basic Education Board was adjudged the best in the country.
Okay, those who run private schools and attend private schools will strongly disagree with you.
No, but see, we are not saying that they are not doing well.
Yeah.
What they are doing, they are complementing what the public schools are doing. Fine and good. But whatever they do, parents will pay. If they buy one computer today, the parents will pay for it. If they buy whatever they do, parents will pay for it.
I guess parents who send their children, they are set for that already. Yes. So let's get your opinion.
My view is that if you look at the larger society, you want to ask, how do students from private schools fit into the socioeconomic milieu. That's a problem because some people come up with British standards, some people come up with American standards.
Yeah,
You know, at the end, will they all go overseas to learn? Are they not going to come down here to work and so on and so forth? But besides that, there's nothing stopping public schools. And the paradox is that overseas, you have public schools actually are preferred to private institutions. You know, these schools are regulated. They have to have the same standards. They have to have the same values, you know, to operate. Now, looking at what obtains between public and private schools, don't also forget the fact that there are some private schools in rural areas with broken roofs and everything. There are still private schools. You have somebody who didn't train properly, who was not trained properly, running a private school as it is, you know, just to mitigate the lack that is in that environment. But having said that, we know when they say private schools, we look at missionary schools or church schools and British schools and all those things. These are high-class schools, as may be the case. But we also know, like, I know states like Lagos State, Ogun State, FCT, like my colleague has mentioned, they measure up, you know, good buildings, conducive environment, except you can't talk about the population. But I know the former governor of Lagos State actually did something about that, about merging standards between private and public sector schools, as may be the case.
Yeah, mentioning the standard, I think they must first of all look at, I agree, like many people would say, that the manpower, the teachers at these public schools are well trained. Yeah, they go through most of them are well trained, I believe. So, but for many private schools, I don't know how much of this teacher training or education they seem to have, but somehow they find themselves teaching in these schools.
In FCT, our basic minimum qualification for anybody to be employed in our public school is NCE. If you check, go to our statistics, you can't see anybody. If you see anybody who is teaching in our public school that does not possess a teacher professional certificate, that person must have, be undergoing his postgraduate diploma in education right now. I give you assurance. So in FCT, we don't compromise that. We make sure that any teacher that we are bringing into the system is professionally qualified.
Okay, now we agree on we agree that funding is a major problem. When we come back, we'll talk about the role of parents, teachers, associations, and we'll talk about the role of alumni from these schools. Yeah, we know the government should take care of these public schools, but I think parents whose children are there, those who have left the schools, can, as a way of responsibility, contribute something to the school. Now let's go on to NTA Kano, where of course education is being discussed and the way out is their focus. Kano.
There is no doubt that education is the most critical and indispensable sector that propels development in any society. A society that wishes to realize its both human and natural potentials must invest substantially in education. In the years past, education system in Nigeria had received the deserved attention from both government and individuals. Teachers were highly trained to teach and teaching materials adequately provided.
During colonial times, you see, a particular person will be taken. How many people? Aminu Kano was taken to Katsina and other places to teach. Sadano will be taken to Kano. And he's comfortable in Kano. He make Kano his home. If he is transferred to Niger tomorrow, he will just pick his bag. Because if he goes to Niger, whatever is required of him here, he will find it there. Whatever he needs, he has here, he will find it even better there in Mina. So they don't have problems. And they move with their families.
Majority of them started from teaching, teacher training college, and then they are interested in the teaching profession.
With that kind of training
And with that kind of system where the best are taken into teaching profession, then the standard of education will be raised.
Today, there has been an increase in public outcry concerning the low quality of education at various levels in Nigeria.
The population is much. You will find 150 pupils in primary school, 100 students, 150 in senior secondary school, in one class. So definitely the atmosphere is not the same. At that time, you may find 20, 11, 25, 30, and the most 36.
Another problem is there is no training, no reminder. The teachers are not reminded about their duties. There's no workshop, no training.
And because teaching now, the remuneration again, it's not encouraging. So whoever you see in the teaching profession is there by accident or by coincidence. And he's just there to mark time. He's there to mark time. And because of continuous legislation by the government, successive administration, now they begin to discriminate in terms of remuneration.
In Kano, the government is putting more effort to reverse the trend, but experts believe a lot more need to be done.
Problem can only be solved by all those involved. When I say all those involved, I mean all the stakeholders. Stakeholders include the government, the student, the teachers, the parents, the community. They are all part of the teaching and learning.
Let there be well-qualified teachers and be paid like any other profession so that people will be attracted to teaching profession. Teaching materials and teaching aids should be provided. Classrooms should be adequate enough to accommodate not more than 36 to 40 students per class.
One I was always for is perhaps to model the Western education to suit our own circumstances. It's not that if they bring anything 100%, other countries of the world, they embrace Western education. Go to Malaysia, go to Singapore. Singapore is adopting similar system, the 634 system we are doing in Nigeria. It's the same system which Singapore is doing. But they model the Western education, they put it with their own traditional system and values. Now they put them together to calibrate and to chart a way they will handle their students in school.
It's Kano making an attempt to educate, telling us the way out. Well, different opinions, different personalities, different regions. Just before we went to Kano, I mentioned that we're going to talk about the role of the parents, teacher. I know the other parents. I don't know if they still do it. Do they still do it in schools? Oh, yes. Okay, good. And the alumni. What's their role? Because we can't heap it all on government. Government have so much to take care of. So what are the roles of these bodies?
Okay. Let me use my school. Well, this is a secondary
All right,
school.
we'll do that quickly.
Yeah, government college.
Okay.
Omuaya, we have this restoration thing going on because the school from the federal government that are going to stay now is at the local government level. And this is a school with influential, prominent old boys. You find out that there's a lot of work going on by the Old Boys Association to turn things around, you know, to rehabilitate the school, to bring in quality. That is an aspect of what alumni associations should do, ought to do, because it's even the bedrock of education in developed countries.
Yes, that's, you want to say?
Well, I just want to tell you that at the basic education level, the slogan for universal basic education program in Nigeria is education for all is the responsibility of all. And for us in FCT, our parents, the PTAs, are very, very functional and they are doing very, very well. I want to tell you that there's a particular school, junior secondary school in Pape, for instance. The PTA of that school went and faced the entire school. You see, saving government almost about 10 million naira. If it will be awarded, you know, by contract to be fenced, you will find out. So you can see the PTA is doing a lot of. You go to most of our schools here, you see in fact, our PTAs, Parent Teachers Association, FCT, are even competing with each other.
Yeah, okay.
So they are doing very, very well, and we encourage them to do more, because education for all is the responsibility of all.
I hope your children went to public schools.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well,
I just wanted to be sure if it's do what I say, but don't do what I do.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, one more thing. Curricula. I don't know how often you revise this curricula of schools, because some other opinions has it that in public schools, apart from the curricula you set for them, they go extra miles to give them extra curricula, they teach them extra things, and so they seem to be a little ahead in some cases than those in the public schools. And of course, today we know the world is going digital. I still see them use chalkboard in some public schools. I don't know if that's still the trend everywhere. While in many public schools, we see they use computer to teach because the world goes digital. We see they use some digital platforms to teach. So in areas like that, what's being done?
Well, I will always use the FCT. Yes. In FCT, we are using both. We are using both because we cannot change our school just overnight into digital. So some of our schools are already going digital, while others are still coming up, because we will not be able to attend to them at the same time. So if you take some of our schools, if you go to Nigeria Korea Model School, for instance, you go there, you see wonders. If you go there, you begin to look, is this a Nigerian school? Is this a Nigerian school at all? When you go there, in fact, you'll be very, very happy. Now, I just want to say that one of the things that we need to do is to make sure that our schools are child-friendly. When our schools are made child friendly, that means that everything is there, very, very friendly to the child, to the teacher, to the parents, and everybody. So the infrastructures are there, teachers are good, the instructional materials are available, parents are doing their whatever they need to do, and the entire society is taking it up upon itself to make sure that the school system is good. When we do that, our educational system will be good.
We have so many things to do to make our education system good. You want to add to that, and in addition to whatever you say, some people have said, hey, give these schools back to the missionaries.
Yeah, schools have been given back to missionaries. Most schools have been given back to missionaries. But what we can't run away from is funding and implementation of policies. Policies have been put in place, and there has to be funding to achieve, so to digitalize, as you may want to say. And don't also forget that some parents may not have the wherewithal to bring in some of these materials that a student or a ward needs to get educated properly, especially within the public school system, and that's something we have to have in mind. But having said that, also schools, management, schools regulators, at the end of the day, it runs down to how
Dr. Noma, you are disagreeing. Can you do that very, very briefly?
Yes, for me, there is no need for government to hand over schools to missionaries. There is no need.
Yeah, maybe government should do much more than they're doing.
That's all, yes. That's all. It's just paying conscious attention to education. That's all. There is no need for government to hand over issues to the missionaries. There is no need.
Education is liberalized, and anybody can take over the school. I had a school that I attended.
Okay.
Okay.
They can compliment.
We are ending now. Yes, I am actually liking the way the discussion is going right now. I think I've agreed that government should, in public schools, government should pump in a little much more.
Yes.
Yes. PTA should contribute some, even in training of some of these teachers.
Yes, the society, the NGOs.
Yeah, whoever.
The international donors.
Yes, if you want to, you can come
in.
I want to thank you very much. Who can remember your school anthem?
I remember my school anthem.
Let me hear a line or two.
We lift our voice to thee. Oh, I'm singing this.
Which is secondary school?
That's fine. And I went to government college in Umuahia.
You remember any of them?
Oh, yeah. We will always be great people.
Okay. What school is that?
Government Teachers College, Abuja.
And your...
Government College in Umuahia.
All right. Thank you very much. I just like doing that to my guests. Thank you very much.
You took me off.
I know. I like it. All right. Thank you very much. We'll continue the discussion after. Now, let us quickly take a flight to Akure, where our correspondent in Akure, we're flying to Umuahia actually. All right, I hope there is an airport there where we're going to land in NT Umuahia, and our correspondent will tell us what the education system there is like. Enjoy.
The Nigerian educational system has its roots in the foundation laid by her colonial masters through the establishment of missionary schools, which were then managed according to the philosophies of the missionaries. Presently, Nigeria operates the 6334 system of education, which was designed to instill functionality by producing graduates that can make use of their heads, hearts, and hands, so to speak. But it is rather unfortunate that despite how promising this appeared, the education system has lost its glory both at the federal and state levels.
Education is not really what it should be now. And I can say that there are many causes to that. For you to get good students academically, the teachers should be well paid.
Salaries were not prompt. So based on that, you find out that once you're not being paid, you won't vote in your best into your work. And we'll identify that problem, we'll tackle it through the creation of UBA. Teacher salaries were moved to UBA.
If you look at this building, it's very, very dilapidated. Children cannot even stay there. If you look at the environment, very bushy. And one of the problems is that the children are so tender that they cannot even cut the grasses around.
The system is facing a number of challenges, one of which is that about 10.5 million children aged 5 to 14 years are not in school, notwithstanding free and compulsory primary education in most states of the Federation. Analysts believe that the trouble with education is not the system itself, but a lack of will to implement good policies often changed by successive governments.
The 6334 system of education is a good thing, it's a good development, but the problem we have is that implementation of that system is what matters, and that is what has made the educational system to degenerate.
The government, I still say, they are trying so much. You can see they are renovating schools, but we still need facilities in our various schools for effective learning.
Putting things right in the Nigerian educational system should begin with taking a careful and detailed look at the myriads of problems besetting the system, and one is lack of adequate funding. This has in turn led to other issues such as poor infrastructure, insufficient qualified teachers, lack of motivation and incentives for teachers, as well as poor and polluted learning environments. These and many others have resulted in most qualified teachers leaving the system, while those who stayed back have developed a lethargy toward teaching, finding it difficult to instill the much-needed discipline in the system.
But when they fund it, the teacher will be proactive. The teacher will put in everything to make sure they train the children.
Government should make the compulsory so that teachers will be accommodated in the school.
Bearing in mind that education is the bedrock of development in any nation, it is necessary for concerted efforts to be made toward restoring its lost glory, not forgetting that an effective education system must include proper planning and regular review of technical and vocational education. Nigeria must therefore look toward this angle.
Well, that is much we can take on the show today. And Cecil, that anthem.
Okay, don't worry about the anthem. I will let you be. I will let you be.
Anyways, all right. Bye for now. We'll see you next weekend.
Yeah, and from me, I would say while we are bidding farewell to brother COVID, we want to face our Uncle Lassa. Please, basic schools, teach your children how to wash their hands and be safe. And you too, be safe. Have a great Sunday.